Welcome to Legacy Lounge, the podcast where you'll discover how to lead with purpose and build a legacy that matters. I'm Brin'na, your host and leadership coach, and I am here to guide you on a journey to experience a life of fulfillment, both personally and professionally, without compromise. In each episode, we'll uncover the power of leading authentically, starting with self-leadership. Because true leadership is not just about directing others, it's about inspiring them to willingly follow your lead. So if you're ready to step into your full potential, show up authentically for yourself and others, and create a lasting impact on the world, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome back to the show. Today's topic is about leadership and more specifically, how to meet your team where they are. This is about more than just saying hello in the hallway or in the break room. It's about fostering genuine connection and an understanding within your team. I learned this lesson firsthand when I became a district senior director. Initially, I was all about inspecting what I expected and coming in with a rigid plan for how things should run. But I quickly realized that effective leadership is about adaptability, not assumptions. It's about taking the time to understand your team's individual needs, their challenges, their strengths, and then adjusting your approach accordingly. Working side by side builds trust. Think back to a time when someone in a leadership position truly took the time to work alongside you. They weren't just delegating tasks, they were rolling up their sleeves and getting involved. It creates a sense of camaraderie, doesn't it? When leaders immerse themselves in the work, they build deeper connections with their team. It also gives them a clearer understanding of how things actually function on the ground. This makes me giggle because I think about a time, and I will have to attach the photo if I can in the show notes to prove it. But one of my legendary bosses, which you will hear about throughout, I'm sure, the remainder of my days in my business and in my personal life, because that's just the kind of impact he made in my life. Mr. Salam, one of a kind leader of people. And specifically thinking about an example when a leader chose on their own to roll up their sleeves and get involved is hilarious to think about now. This was before I was a senior director. I was in Southern Indiana as a store director, and I was running a $55 million Target store and having so much fun. That was an incredible position. And we were at the peak of Q4. I mean, there is freight everywhere. The guests are just crazy, getting every deal possible. My team is kicking butt and we're crushing operations. We're making massive sales traction, breaking records with the company. It was just like the hype of all times to be a part of. And I made a decision to swap shifts with one of my executive team leaders, known as an assistant store manager. He had just welcomed into the world his first little girl, and he and his wife, he had returned back to work, and he and his wife were battling the child being sick. And obviously, like the peak of Q4, I need everybody on their A game, and I need you to pull your weight, and I need extra this and extra that. Oh, by the way, I need you to do it on half the payroll. Just a side joke on the payroll, but for real, life is tough out here. But anyways, I remember he was taking care of this little one. They were sick. His wife was sick. I know he was sick, but he would never admit it. And he was supposed to close the store. So I have no kids. My, at the time, boyfriend, now husband, was long distance working for Amazon. We are the crazy retail couple. And I had nothing but, my dog and my best friend to be with when I wasn't at work. And she also worked at Target. And I know we were both just crazy busy. Anyways, I offered to swap him shifts. Did not fully think that through. So I let my boss know, hey, I made a choice to work a split today. I'm going to go in early and open, make sure the store is like functioning, you know, we're on process. All the things are taken care of for the day. I am going to leave midday for about 8 hours, and then I will come back, work a full closing shift, close up shop, and I'll be back the next morning for my next shift. And my boss is like, wow, you're so nice. Your team must love you. And he's like, if that's what you think you should do, then that's okay with me. Okay. Well, if you didn't know, the closing leader, which as the store leader, I know this function happens, but I did not know who executed the function. And I now know it is my assistant manager. So what I'm about to explain is very nerdy in the retail world, but it's hilarious. And when you see the picture, I think you'll understand. Because I had told my boss that I was swapping schedules, he chose to reroute his day. So he was going to come and visit the store in the morning, walk the store with me, talk business, check in, see if I needed anything. And because I opted to swap shifts, he came at night. Totally fine. I'm very transparent with my boss, anybody I've ever worked for or with. I am as transparent as glass. So if there is a problem, you're going to know about it before you step in the building. Here's what I'm doing about it, and here's when you can expect it to be fixed. None of that was even a concern. However, my boss comes in the evening, and I took the shift from my assistant manager, and we have trailer swaps that happen overnight. So the distribution center shows up in the back. They call the store. They're like, hey, I'm here to swap the trailer. The pin lock needs changed. And my immediate reaction is to get on the walkie and be like, hey, team, who's responding? Crickets. Total silence. Hey, team, can I get a response? Who is changing the pin lock? Nobody. So I make my way to the back room. Fine, I'll figure it out. Why is nobody responding? Hello, the whole team that normally does this has already left for the day. And the closer that was going to close, my assistant manager, that's his normal task that he either delegates out to somebody that reports to him, or he physically does it himself. At this time, I had been with the company for 4 years, maybe 5. I had never, ever been responsible, first of all, to change the pin lock. Secondly, would have never done it by myself, let alone in the dark. And it's late in the evening. Pretty sure it was like 8:30, 9 p.m. at night. We closed at 11 because this was peak Q4. So I go outside, and the truck driver, bless his heart, he's like, hey, I got to swap these, but you got to change the pin lock. And I'm like, okay. I haven't done that before. Do you have any idea? And he's like, points to this little outdoor mailbox that the pin locks live in. So I go grab it, crawl under the trailer, putting my keys in it, trying to swap it out. All of a sudden, my walkie blows up. Hey, Brin'na, can you come to the front? Salam's here. Hey, boss, Salam's here. Hey, Brin'na, your boss is at the front of the store. I am now underneath a trailer in the back of the building. It's pitch black outside, and I have my flashlight on my phone turned on so I can see. I'm covered in oil. Side note, pin locks have oil all over them. I had no gloves on. I had no change of clothes. I was just covered. I was in it. I was committed. It was awful. And I get on the walkie, and I'm like, hey, I'm pretty sure I was closing with my team leader at this time. And I'm like, hey, can you go to 2? Move to channel 2 on the walkie. And I'm like, hey, can you start walking with Salam? I am a little occupied at the time. I'm out back trying to change the pin lock, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, my team leader was standing directly next to my boss when I said that, and she just holds the walkie down to respond, and all I hear is my boss cracking up laughing. Next thing I know, he and my team leader come outside and they have a set of gloves and they all have their flashlights on their phone. And my boss is like, Brin'na, have you ever changed the pin lock? And I'm like, no, I have not. And I cannot believe that this is happening. This is so embarrassing. I'm so sorry. And he was like, don't ever say sorry. I'll teach you how to do it. So my boss gets on his hands and knees, crawls under that trailer and shows me how to change the pin lock in the pitch black night with the driver staring at us. My team is just getting a full-blown kick out of this. And I just can't do anything else but laugh. I am like sleep deprived, peak Q4 exhaustion, probably hadn't eaten all day. And I'm just running off laughs and giggles to keep my energy going. And we get up and we're walking back inside the building. And I was like, Salam, I have to take a picture of us because I cannot believe that as my district senior director, you just got on the ground under the trailer and showed me how to change the pin lock. And it's during Q4 and it's crazy in here. I have to have a picture to capture this memory because this is just unbelievable and so embarrassing. But also, if you can't make fun of yourself, then that's a whole different problem we can talk about on another episode. But I cherish that picture so much now. And fast forward, 2 years later, I moved from Indiana out to California from a store director to become a district senior director. So that memory, man, has just been ingrained in me. And not only did I get a good laugh at myself out of it, yes, but my team in the building that day got to see something incredible happen. They got to see me as their leader admit, first of all, try and fail to figure it out myself. 2, admit the fact that I have no idea what I'm doing. And yes, this is embarrassing. And I think I need help. And then they got to watch my boss help me and teach me in that moment. And he didn't think twice about it. I'm pretty sure until this episode airs and I tell him he has to listen to it because there's a story about his leadership involved in it. I'm pretty sure he hasn't thought about it since. But to me, that was so impactful. And I carried that with me through today. I mean, this was 2018, 2019 when this happened. And when I became a district senior director, after I had come into a building and I have my rigid plan and I quickly learned and was humbled, like, you can't do that. You can't just inspect what you expect. You got to meet your team where they're at. And in order to understand where they're at, you have to place yourself in positions where you have the opportunity to learn where they're at. And I kept that model of what he did with changing the pin lock on the trailer during fourth quarter side by side with me into my role as a senior director. And I'm talking when the AM, the day goes sideways the moment the sun's up and you're like, what happened? We're not even open to the public yet. That's because teams enter the store at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. and they're unloading freight. The processes are going. Sometimes it's a 24-hour process. But when the team was struggling and we could correlate it to a function of this process, the very first thing I thought of was, okay, I will be there tomorrow morning with you, my now store manager that reports to me, and your leaders in your building that run this process with a copy of the best practice, with all of the resources that we need so that we together can walk side by side and look and assess and watch the process. And when there's a gap that does not match that best practice, that is where we're going to start. And the moment I repositioned the thought process like that is not only when, yes, roadblocks were removed, the team learned a ton, but so did I. And it allowed me to bond with the team during that process. It's such an amazing light bulb moment if you understand the power of it and you have the right intention behind it. Now, if you just go in and you start telling everybody how wrong they are, that will backfire, my friend, and that will backfire very quickly. You have to be there to be a student of the business. You have to be there as a partner to your team and to those that you lead. But you also can bring the strategy with you, bring the resources, bring the tools, bring the best practices, bring whatever research you can do ahead of time and observe. It will tell you everything you need to know and where you need to start. So to wrap up this rant of a story, Salam, if you're listening, thank you. I am grateful for you in many other ways than just teaching me how to change a pin lock. But your leadership is like no other. And you, sir, are a unicorn, and I am grateful I got to work for you. So let's get back on track here. I left off with leaders immersing themselves in the work. They build those deeper connections with their team, right? And it also gives them a clear understanding of how things actually function on the ground. And I have a peer of mine in this entrepreneurial space. She's a phenomenal coach and leader. If you haven't heard of her, look her up. Her name is Jenny Wood. But she articulated something in such a beautiful way. It's now a phrase that I will never forget. And she says that people need to weigh in to buy in. I'm going to say that again. People need to weigh in to buy in. And what she means by that is that working alongside your team is a powerful way to show them that their input is valued and that you're invested in their success. But it also allows for vulnerability, which is the unexpected strength in all of this. I think one of the biggest myths about leadership is that you need to have all the answers. And the truth is, admitting when you don't know something is a sign of strength, not weakness. When I finally let go of the need to appear to be perfect, to appear to have it all together, to appear like I am not about to have another anxiety attack on the edge of my seat with how in the hell am I going to get all of this done? But when I chose not to appear perfect, it created a ripple effect throughout my entire team. They felt more comfortable opening up about their own challenges, and we started working together to find solutions in a more collaborative way, the way of one big team. Vulnerability breeds trust, and trust is the foundation of any high-performing team. Look it up. Bottom line, of some of the best sports teams, some of the best business teams, some of the best individual explorers, their people and the way that they function is because they function on the basis of trust. All right, if you're still with me, I know it's because you want to know the details. You want to know what action steps can you take to meet your team where they are. So let's discuss how you can actually put this into practice. First of all, immerse yourself. Get involved in processes. It's not going to be pretty, and that's okay. But when you immerse yourself and you work alongside your team and you see how things really are actually playing out against what you think is playing out in your mind, this will help you identify areas where you can provide so much clear support and guidance. It is ridiculous. So, first takeaway, immerse yourself. Second, communicate your standards. So working in the field or with your team in the field, that's what we refer to it as in retail, I believe Fortune 500 companies, but it could be different. Communicate your standards. Working in the field gives you a chance to clarify expectations and ensure everyone is on the same page. As a multi-unit leader, communicating effectively my standards was so important. And I've talked about this in a newsletter before, but if 70% of my team missed the mark and let's say 7 of 10 leaders did the wrong thing, I don't blame them for not following directions. That's a moment for me to look at myself and be like, wow, okay, I clearly did not articulate something appropriately because 7 of 10 missed the message and all did the wrong things. Make sure you communicate your standards. Next thing is to ask for help. I know it's uncomfortable. I can already feel the eye rolls as you're listening to this, but do not be afraid to admit when you don't have the answer. Lean on the strength of your team. They will appreciate being valued for their expertise. How do you think my assistant manager reacted the next day when I got to tell him what happened during the shift I swapped him with? He got a kick out of it. He still makes jokes about it because not only did he know I had no experience or knowledge on how to effectively change the pin lock, it was even funnier that at the same time that I had the opportunity to learn how to do that, my boss just happened to show up and was the one that taught me. And he said, like, Brin'na, you just take this in so much grace. Like, you laughing at yourself makes this even funnier because I don't think if anyone else was in that situation, they would ever even tell anyone that happened. And you're sharing it. And I was like, oh yeah, we're going to have like a total leader training. Any leader with keys has to know how to do that. And I don't know why we didn't do that to begin with. Right. So it's funny what it opens up. And if I hadn't asked for help and tried to hide it and act like, oh, I know what I'm doing, but I'll be back. Like that doesn't help anybody. It's a facade and it catches up with you eventually, and you just need to stay away from that. So ask for help and don't be afraid to admit when you don't have the answer. Lastly, create open dialogue. Encourage your team to share their challenges and ideas openly. Yes, this means without criticism. Make it clear that you value their input and that you're all in this together, and you have to mean it. On the days when I would go shoulder to shoulder into an operation way more in the weeds than I probably needed to, I got to know the team of where they were at current day. I got to see challenges. I got to see roadblocks. I got to see mistakes and help my direct report identify just how crucial of a mistake that is and the ripple effect that it has, but also how to course correct it. If I had just chosen to come in and stick with my rigid plan, we would have accomplished, a result immediately, I'm sure, but I would have lost some really great leaders along the way. And the impact of their own teams and the stabilization that it provides in a building, I mean, as a multi-unit leader, your voice is so powerful. So don't be afraid to use it in the right way. But you've got to build a relationship with your team. You have to foster a foundation of trust and openness. The most effective leaders are those that are willing to learn, adapt, and grow alongside their team. When you meet your team where they are, you will create an environment where everyone feels valued, supported, and empowered to contribute to their best. And that, my friends, is how you can start to build a legacy that lasts. That's it for this episode of Legacy Lounge, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to lead with purpose. Remember, leadership begins with you. When you're connected to your values, strengths, and authentic self, you show up powerfully for your team, businesses, and everyone you lead. To authentically lead others, you must first lead yourself. I challenge you to consider, how are you investing in your personal growth to create a legacy that you envision? Thank you for joining me in the Legacy Lounge. If this episode sparked any thoughts or inspired action, I'd love to hear from you. I'm your host, Brin'na Rollins-Williams. Connect with me on LinkedIn or other socials, and let's continue the conversation. Remember, your legacy is built one intentional step at a time.